Mother 1 and Mother 2. At least one of these are popular. I obviously really like these games. Just look at my username and profile picture. While Earthbound is very well known about nowadays, and Earthbound Beginnings is vaguely recognized, I feel like most people overlook the GBA remake. But that's probably for good reason. Game Boy Advance remakes always seem to get a bad reputation among fans. I don't know whether it's because these people are purists, or they're biased against handhelds, or whatever. And while I usually prefer the original versions of these games, I don't think the remakes are nearly as bad as people make them out to be. Even the problems everyone complains about only exist because of technical limitations, and I'd say these remakes are fine overall. Mother 1+2 is a perfect example of this. Even though some aspects are absolutely horrendous, I wouldn't call this an unplayable remake compilation like everyone says it is. For this, I'll be playing the fan translation. It's a free, unofficial, fan-made translation of the game, if that wasn't obvious, and I want to give credit where credit is due to Tomato and Jeffman for creating it. The Mother 1 portion is probably the best way to play through the first game. There are so many advantages over the original, it's not even funny. For one, movement on the overworld feels so much better. In the NES version, movement was tile-based and it felt really stiff. The GBA remake, on the other hand, uses pixel-based movement, and while teleporting is much harder and going through doors is somehow a challenge, it just makes the experience a whole lot better. I know it's to be expected, but the translation in Earthbound Beginnings has aged poorly. There are a ton of censors, the writing doesn't have the same charm as Earthbound or Mother 3, and it just feels very clumsy. But the Mother 1+2 fan translation uses a similar script to the Japanese release, which holds up way better. This was only added in the fan translation, but it is probably the biggest advantage. As soon as you start the game, a present near you contains the Easy Ring. This makes the game way less of a hassle. Mother 1 is infamous for its sheer difficulty spikes and massive amounts of grinding, and this item resolves those problems. It might make the game a little too easy for players. I mean, for crying out loud, your defense will already be 33 in the beginning, but newcomers at least have the option. Some other changes here and there include a quick check feature similar to the second game, checking places in the overworld lets you know if enemies can spawn, the menus feel much quicker to navigate, certain transitions look very different, and status conditions have special colors. However, as much as Mother 1+2 improves upon the original game, there is one major drawback: the aesthetics. The graphics are completely unchanged. You'd think they'd make the game look more like the sequel, but no. They stayed very true to the original, which is admittedly fugly even for the NES. But the main issue stems from the color palette. Due to the Game Boy Advance's lack of a backlight, they had to wash out the colors just so you could see the game. I understand why they did this and it doesn't bother me too much, but seriously, the trees look like they're made of plastic. Now for what you've all been waiting for, or probably hiding in fear of, the music. I don't know how they screwed up the sound quality so much. The GBA was way more capable than the NES when it came to sound, so you'd think it would be simple to just remake the songs on the GBA sound font and still resemble the original tunes. Instead, they sound like crap. The instruments are loud and obnoxious and the compositions sound completely off. Here are a couple examples of songs that were butchered in the transition. I do think some songs have more energy, but in the end I'd rather listen to the NES soundtrack. That being said, it's still way more acceptable than Mother 2's GBA remake. If the Mother 1 port was disappointing, then the Mother 2 remake isn't even passable. There are only two advantages this version has over the original. For one, you can scroll through the menus much faster. As satisfying as the menus feel in Earthbound, they were pretty slow. Now, they're a breeze. The other positive is that Jeff can now deal smash attacks. I'm not sure if it was intended for Jeff to be incapable of critical hits in the Super Nintendo version, maybe it was to balance out his inability to miss, but it's still nice that he can join in on the fray of flashing the screen rapidly. That's it. The graphics are the same, the story is no different, and the game plays the same outside of the two minor changes I mentioned. Everyone also points out how glitchy this remake is, but to be honest, it really isn't. There are only two known bugs, the exit mouse glitch and the poison Gygas glitch. The exit mouse glitch allows you to exit the Cave of the Past and return to the overworld by using an exit mouse in Gygas' room. All the locations are already prepared for the ending and the prayer music plays everywhere. But not only is this unlikely since you have to trigger it, and it's very slight anyways because it doesn't ruin anything, it was also present in the original Mother 2. Arguably the more well-known bug is the poison Gygas glitch. Normally you're supposed to pray 9 times to defeat Gygas, but in Mother 1+2 you can poison him with the Viper and he'll eventually die. Sure, this isn't how the game was intended to be beaten, but it still plays out like normal after this. And who knows, maybe atheists will prefer this method of finishing the game. My point is, this is a pretty stable port. In fact, there are even more bugs in the original game. Remember the Shattered Man, Rock Candy, and 3 tent glitches? I know Earthbound, at least on a technical level, was advanced for its time, but it's kind of impressive that the remake has less bugs considering how rushed it was. But what I want to excuse is the sound quality. If you thought the Mother 1 renditions were pathetic, then take a gander at Mother 2's. I know the Super Nintendo and GBA have much different sound chips, but if Mother 3 can sound great, then why can't this? And it's not just the music that's bad, the sound effects have also taken a huge dive. I don't even know which game I'd consider worse sound-wise. The Mother 2 portion for just sounding bad overall, or the Mother 1 section for not being able to replicate an NES soundtrack. But you can tell the amount of effort that went into these remakes by just listening to them. Overall, I do think fans have exaggerated how bad these remakes really are. The handheld factor is convenient, and some minor changes here or there are nice, but they're kind of meh, since they look, play, and feel the same. There's no new content, no major improvements, and it's understandable why not many people recognize this remake. While I consider the Mother 1 portion the best way to play that game, and the Mother 2 section to be worse than the original, they're still playable. Just disappointing. If you've been critical of other GBA remakes in the past, I'd say you should give them a second chance. Well, most of them. You don't have to like them and prefer them over their original counterparts, but at least go into them with an open mind. You may find something you prefer. But until next time, this is Blue10, relieved that I don't have to listen to butchered versions of my favorite soundtracks for the time. Maybe Mother 1+2 isn't the most depressing soundtrack I've heard. Have you listened to Klonoa Moonlight Museum?